When you think of Bumblebee from Michael Bay's Transformers movies, one thing immediately stands out. He doesn't talk, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, he speaks through the radio, piecing together lines from music, TV, and movies to express himself. And while this is common knowledge to anyone who knows just a little bit about Transformers, what's less well known is why the filmmakers decided to make Bumblebee speak through the radio in the first place. Plus, not too many people actually know how many movies, songs, and TV shows Bumblebee samples in the Bayverse. So with that said, let's attempt to break down why the filmmakers decided to make Bee speak through the radio and attempt to source every piece of audio Bumblebee has ever sampled.
So you talk through the radio?
Thank you, you do. You're wonderful, you're wonderful.
Alright, so why did the filmmakers decide to have Bumblebee speak through the radio in the first place? Well, the idea actually came from the writers Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman, who took inspiration from E.T. the Extraterrestrial as a storytelling device. They saw how E.T. barely spoke, yet his bond with Elliot still felt deeply emotional. That lack of direct communication amplified the connection, making Elliot's need to understand E.T. more compelling, something that also drew the audience in. Orci and Kurtzman saw a similar opportunity with Bumblebee. By limiting his ability to speak, they could create a more heartfelt relationship between him and Sam, one that relied more on emotion and action rather than dialogue. But beyond just the emotional impact, there was also a practical reason for this decision. The first Transformers movie was structured as a mystery for nearly an hour, gradually building anticipation for the Autobots' arrival. If Bumblebee could simply explain everything to Sam, it would have disrupted that buildup. Instead, by having him communicate through fragmented audio clips, the film maintained its sense of mystery, while also making Bee's presence feel more organic and real as the story unfolded. But how do you actually write dialogue for a character who only speaks through pre-existing audio? Well, according to Orci and Kurtzman, it was no easy task. While they always knew what Sam's side of the conversation would be, figuring out what Bumblebee should say was an entirely different challenge. They spent hours sifting through songs and movies, testing different phrases to see what fit best. Since there were so many possibilities, it took a long time to piece together his lines in a way that felt natural. To help with this, Paramount provided them with a list of films from the studio's movie catalog, allowing them to construct Bumblebee's voice using dialogue exclusively from the studio's own library. While writing Bumblebee's dialogue was one challenge, bringing it to life through sound was an entirely different one. That responsibility fell to the sound department, led by Eric Adal and Mike Hopkins, who took full advantage of Paramount's extensive film library. Sound editor P.K. Hooker meticulously combed through hours of audio from past Paramount films, selecting lines that perfectly conveyed Bumblebee's emotions and intent. In many ways, Hooker's choices helped write Bumblebee's dialogue, shaping how the character communicated. However, not all of Bumblebee's dialogue came from pre-existing audio. Some of it was recorded specifically for the film. You see, at times, Hooker himself provided dialogue for Bee, though the only line we know for certain came from him was the one,
"Rain down like visitors from heaven, hallelujah."
Now, as for why some of Bee's dialogue was newly recorded rather than sampled from existing films, we can't say for certain. However, it likely came down to the challenge of finding the perfect line. Even with access to Paramount's vast film library, there may have not been a pre-recorded clip that fit both the scene's context and emotional weight. In cases like this, recording new dialogue was likely the most efficient solution. However, beyond dialogue, the sound team worked to give Bumblebee a distinct audio identity. Each Transformer had their own sound personality designated to them. Optimus Prime was based on air, Starscream was defined by screaming turbines, and Bumblebee was built around buzzing. To achieve this, Bumblebee's entire vocal performance was built from scratch using custom sound effects. Eric Adal and Mike Hopkins vocally acted for him, processing their own voices to create Bee's glitch-like vocalizations. But many of Bee's sounds came from unexpected sources. His motor hums were captured by recording a fly trapped in a cup, the servos in his legs were sourced from an old HP printer, and his splatty vocals came from a wet garden hose. So now that we know how Bumblebee's voice was brought to life, let's attempt to source all the iconic quotes and music that make up his unique way of speaking. And right from his first appearance in Transformers 2007, he makes an impression, since when he pulls up to Bobby Bolivia's used car lot, he's playing a song, but unfortunately for the life of me, I haven't been able to figure out what it is. However, maybe one of you guys might know the song.
For your first car?
I don't want to talk to you for the rest of this day.
Come on, it's just a practical joke.
That mystery aside, Bumblebee's next musical choice is much easier to identify. When he parks next to the VW Bug, he plays the opening to the song This Moment by the band Disturbed, setting the tone for what's to come. Later, when Uncle Bobby B tries to persuade Sam into buying the VW Bug over him, Bumblebee responds with Greater Than Man, a line taken from the 1939 War of the Worlds radio broadcast.
Greater than man. By intelligence is greater than man's.
Now, right before B blows out the windows of the other cars, his radio simply says go.
Drove all the way from Alabama.
Unfortunately, we don't have a confirmed source for this one yet. Moving on, Bumblebee's next musical cue is much more recognizable. You see, when Sam watches Michaela walk away, B chimes in with a not-so-subtle hint. He plays Drive by the Cars, perfectly timed to encourage Sam to give her a ride home. As Sam finally picks up Michaela, Bumblebee wastes no time setting the mood. He kicks things off with Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye. However, interestingly enough, the film plays the lyrics out of order. Instead of following the song's natural progression, the line "Let's Make Love Tonight" actually comes before When I Get That Feeling. After a bit more of the song plays, B quickly shifts to I Feel Good by James Brown. And this song is also played out of order as well, with it opening up with the verse leading up to the ending and then immediately cutting to the opening of the song. However, after the song ends and Michaela goes on to leave, B isn't about to let her go without a fight, and he dramatically plays Baby Come Back by Player, which is surprisingly not modified. Later, as Sam drops off Michaela at her house, B closes out the night with an instrumental of What I've Done by Linkin Park. Now, later in the film, when Sam asks if Bumblebee can talk, B responds the only way he can.
Can you talk?
XM satellite radio. Digital cable brings you.
Broadcasting system.
Now, in this clip, we first hear XM satellite radio, a quote we don't have a confirmed source for. However, thanks to the special features, we know the full line being read on set was this.
Can you talk?
XM satellite radio, 130 digital channels of non-stop commercial-free music, news and entertainment.
Where exactly this snippet was pulled from unfortunately remains a mystery. However, after saying this, Bumblebee then follows up with Digital Cable Brings You, another clip without a known origin, before closing with Broadcasting System, which comes straight from the 1939 War of the Worlds radio broadcast.
Columbia Broadcasting System. The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations.
As Sam starts to wrap his head around Bumblebee's unique way of communicating, he realizes Bumblebee is using the radio to talk, and he goes on to ask him if that's how he speaks. In response, Bumblebee quotes the 1985 film Explorers.
So you talk through the radio?
Aggie, you're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're wonderful. Thank you. Aggie, you're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're wonderful.
Still processing everything, Sam then questions what happened the night before. This time, Bumblebee pieces together a more dramatic response, stitching multiple broadcasts together.
So what was that last night? What was that?
Message from Starfleet.
Throughout the inanimate vastness of space.
Down like visitors from heaven. Hallelujah.
He begins with a message from Starfleet Captain, a line from 1966's Star Trek The Original Series, specifically from Season 2, Episode 15, The Trouble with Tribbles.
Message from Starfleet.
Throughout the
Then B follows with Throughout the Inanimate Vastness of Space, which comes straight from the 1939 War of the Worlds radio broadcast. However, the clip is slightly modified, removing the word sidereal.
throughout the inanimate vastness of space. Seedbed of the solar system. Throughout the inanimate vastnesses of sidereal space.
Finally, B caps things off with Angels Will Rain Down Like Visitors from Heaven Hallelujah. And unlike the others, this wasn't pulled from any existing media, but was recorded specifically for the film by sound editor P.K. Hooker. Now, as Michaela tries to make sense of what's happening, she asks if Bumblebee is an alien. In response, Bumblebee transforms back into a car and opens his door, asking, "Any more questions you want to ask?" A line spoken by John Wayne in the 1966 film El Dorado.
Any more questions you want to ask? Any more questions you want to ask?
With the introductions out of the way, Bumblebee takes Sam and Michaela for a ride, and he then sets the mood with an instrumental of Before It's Too Late by the Goo Goo Dolls. The track is modified so some sections of the song can loop. Now, later in the film, when Optimus Prime formally introduces Bumblebee to Sam and Michaela, B takes the opportunity to show off a little. He dances while playing Second to None by Styles of Beyond featuring Mike Shinoda. And just like many other songs, this one is slightly modified for the film, taking the first verse of Shinoda saying "You can check on the rep, yep, second to none," and playing it right after the crashing parts of the song's instrumental. Later in the film, when Bumblebee shrinks down the Allspark, he once again turns to pop culture for his response.
Message from Starfleet, Captain.
Let's get to it.
He begins with "Message from Starfleet, Captain," which is the only quote in the film that is said twice. He then follows up with "Let's get to it," a line delivered by John Wayne in El Dorado.
Let's get to it. Why this bandage? Let's get to it.
With that said, this brings us to the final thing Bumblebee says in the movie, something that, for the first time, comes from his own voice.
Permission to speak, sir. I wish to stay with the boy.
Now, you might be wondering why the filmmakers decided to give Bumblebee a voice after establishing his radio-based communication throughout the film. And well, Bumblebee wasn't planned to speak at all, but during post-production, Michael Bay had Mark Ryan, who was serving as the on-set voice actor for all the different Transformers, record some lines. At the time, Ryan did not know who the lines were for, and believed they were just some test lines. He recorded them a handful of different ways until Bay was satisfied. Around 3 months later after this recording session, Ryan got a phone call from his agent, saying that Bay wanted to use the lines he recorded for Bumblebee. After hearing this, Ryan was confused and told his agent that he didn't do any voice work for the character, since Bumblebee does not speak. After some back and forth, he got a call from Michael Bay's office, and was able to hear the lines he recorded. Ryan would go on record saying that if he knew those lines were meant for Bumblebee, he would have done a younger sounding voice for the character. So now, with Bumblebee having his real voice back, it would make sense for him to continue speaking normally going forward. However, as we know, that did not happen. Despite giving B a voice at the end of the first film, both Michael Bay and the writers loved the unique way he communicated through radio clips. It had become a defining quirk of the character. However, in addition to this, for the sequel, Bay wanted to shift the focus onto the twins, Skids and Mudflap, believing they would appeal more to younger audiences. As a result, Bumblebee was once again rendered mute, ensuring his radio-spliced dialogue remained a core part of his character. And so, with that decision made, Revenge of the Fallen continued the trend of piecing together Bumblebee's dialogue from various media sources. So let's break down exactly where each of his quotes come from for the sequel. Starting with the first one, when Sam brings up the conversation about going to college, Bumblebee excitedly plays "I'm so excited" by the Pointer Sisters. Later in the film, when Bumblebee shows up unannounced at Sam's college to warn Sam about the shard being stolen, he chimes in with "Houston, we have a problem," a famous line delivered by Tom Hanks in the 1995 film Apollo 13.
Houston, we have a problem.
Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
Following this, Bumblebee finds himself in an unexpected situation when Alice, the Decepticon pretender, forces her way inside the car. As Sam struggles to get rid of her, B responds in the only way he can, by blasting an instrumental of "Burn It to the Ground" by Nickelback over the radio. As Alice continues her attempt to seduce Sam, B isn't having any of it. In his eyes, Sam is being unfaithful to Michaela, and he makes his disapproval clear through his choice of music. First, he plays the opening to "Your Cheating Heart" by Hank Williams, a classic song about infidelity. He then ramps up the tension by briefly playing the Jaws theme by John Williams, warning of the danger Sam is in. Still not getting the reaction he wants, B throws in "Super Freak" by Rick James, highlighting just how out of place Alice's behavior is. And when all else fails, B takes matters into his own hands, slamming Alice into the dashboard while blasting "Brick House" by the Commodores, signaling that he's putting an end to the situation once and for all. Later in the film, as Sam grapples with the guilt of Optimus Prime's death, Bumblebee tries to comfort him in the only way he can.
Young fella,
You are.
The person I care about most in my life.
if there's anything you need, I won't be far away.
First, we hear "Young Fella," a line spoken by John Wayne in the 1969 film True Grit.
Young fella,
Captain of what? Bunch of thieves?
young fella.
Next, Bumblebee follows up with "You Are," though the exact source of this snippet unfortunately remains unknown to us.
Young fella,
You are.
He then continues with "The person I care about most in my life," a line spoken by Chris Farley from the 1996 comedy Black Sheep.
You are.
The person I care about most in my life.
Talking about your brother's election hopes or just my career?
The person I care about most in my life hates me.
And finally, B reassures Sam with "If there's anything you need, I won't be far away," a heartfelt quote spoken by Tom Hanks in 1994's Forrest Gump.
if there's anything you need, I won't be far away. If there's anything you need, I won't be far away.
As Sam continues to blame himself for Optimus Prime's death, Bumblebee responds with another set of radio clips, attempting to offer perspective on the situation.
There's some things you just can't change.
So his sacrifice for us would not have been in vain. Hallelujah!
First, he says, "There are some things you just can't change," a line spoken by Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump. reinforcing the idea that some events are beyond anyone's control.
There's some things you just can't change. I guess Lieutenant Dan figured there's some things you just can't change.
B then follows up with, "So his sacrifice for us would have not been in vain, hallelujah." The exact source of this line remains unknown, though the delivery of hallelujah bears a striking resemblance to P.K. Hooker's work in the first film.
So his sacrifice for us would not have been in vain. Hallelujah.
Vastness of
Rain
things.
down like visitors from heaven. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Now, as Sam makes the difficult decision to turn himself into the Decepticons in the hopes of stopping their worldwide rampage, Bumblebee desperately tries to change his mind.
We've got to stick together. Everything we worked for will be wiped out in one day.
First he pleads, "We've got to stick together," a line originally spoken by James Stewart in 1946's It's a Wonderful Life.
We've got to stick together. Now, we can get through this thing all right. We've got to stick together, though. We've got to have faith in each other.
But as Sam remains firm in his decision, Bumblebee follows up with, "Everything we worked for will be wiped out in one day," a dramatic warning taken from the 1952 film High Noon.
Everything we worked for will be wiped out in one day.
They're gonna think this is just another wide open town.
And everything we worked for will be wiped out in one day.
And with that, Bumblebee's use of radio clips in Revenge of the Fallen comes to a close, thus taking us to Dark of the Moon. So let's now break down exactly where his quotes come from in the third film. The first time he starts to quote is when we see him reunite with Sam, but the conversation quickly turns into Sam grilling Bumblebee about why he hasn't been around.
Come here. Come on.
Sam.
In response, B starts with "Come on," a line spoken by Jack Black in 2003's School of Rock.
Come here. Come on.
I would like your share of the rent now, please.
Oh man, you know I don't have it. You wake me up for that? Come on.
Bumblebee follows up by saying Sam's name, once again borrowing James Stewart's voice from It's a Wonderful Life.
Sam. Marriage is all right for Harry and Marty and Sam and you.
As Sam continues expressing his frustration, Bumblebee responds by saying,
"Sam, that makes me feel bad."
He once again starts with Sam, borrowing James Stewart's voice from It's a Wonderful Life.
"Sam, I thought you would go back to New York like Sam and Angie and the rest of them."
The source of that "and makes me" unfortunately remains unknown.
"That makes me..."
But Bumblebee finishes with "feel bad," a line delivered by Dan Aykroyd in the 1995 comedy Tommy Boy.
"Makes me feel bad."
Well, son, since you're no longer a shareholder, this is where I leave you. Don't feel bad.
Later in the film, when Sam's boss, Bruce Brazos, tries to pick a fight with Bumblebee, B responds with a perfectly timed quip. "Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?" is a sarcastic jab spoken by Paul Barish in Tommy Boy.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid? Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
As the scene continues, Bumblebee is caught off guard when Carly suddenly walks in, causing him to panic and accidentally knock into the chandelier.
Missed it by that much.
Now, when viewers heard "missed it by that much," they immediately recognized Don Adams' voice and assumed it came from Get Smart, the classic TV series where the phrase became his character's signature catchphrase. However, despite the strong association with Get Smart, this particular clip actually appears to come from the 1987 comedy Back to the Beach, where Adams delivers the line in a cameo role. However, the line has been edited so it's spoken faster.
Missed it by that much. I won? Well, missed it by that much.
Later in the film, as the Autobots are forced to exile, Bumblebee shares an emotional farewell with Sam, piecing together a heartfelt message through his radio.
We're gonna do whatever we can.
Make it like it was.
You will always be
My friend.
Sam.
I gotta be going on.
He begins with, "We're going to do whatever we can," a determined line spoken by John Wayne in the 1966 Western El Dorado.
We're gonna do whatever we can. Joey, you go back and tell your pa. We're gonna do whatever we can.
Bumblebee then continues with "Make It Like It Was," borrowing Kevin Bacon's voice from the 1984 film Footloose.
Make it like it was. Yeah, I figured there was something that I could do to make it like it was, and then he'd want to stay.
Next, he reassures Sam with, "You will always be my friend." The first part of this phrase, "you," comes from James Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life.
You, Sam, and you.
However, when we get to "will always be my friend," it appears that "will always be" comes from one source, while "my friend" comes from another. Unfortunately, we currently don't know the origin for these quotes.
You will always be
My friend.
Finally, Bumblebee says Sam's name one last time, once again pulling from James Stewart's performance in It's a Wonderful Life.
My friend.
Sam. Hi, Sam.
He then closes with, "I gotta be going on," a line spoken by Alan Ladd in the 1953 western Shane.
I gotta be going on. I gotta be going on.
Now, later on in the film, when the Autobots face execution at the hands of the Decepticons, Bumblebee is forced to witness Q getting gunned down. He solemnly says, "Goodbye, my old friend," borrowing Al Pacino's voice from the 1990 film The Godfather Part 3.
Goodbye, my old friend. Goodbye, my old friend.
Later, when Soundwave seizes him next, Bumblebee struggles and shouts, "Get off me!" a desperate plea originally spoken by Matt Damon in 1989's Saving Private Ryan.
Get off of me! Ryan, get off of me!
And finally, as Soundwave prepares to execute him, Bumblebee turns to Sam one last time and delivers a final message. "We gave them a hell of a run." This line comes from the 1982 action comedy 48 Hours.
We gave him a hell of a run.
I feel like I let you down.
Nah, you didn't let me down. Hell, it was a long shot. We gave him a hell of a run, though.
Now, at the end of the film, when the battle is won, Bumblebee takes a moment to celebrate Sam and Carly's reunion by playing the wedding theme. However, the exact version of this tune remains unidentified. Later, as Sam urges Bumblebee that he needs to slow it down, Bumblebee responds with, "I'm just trying to help out," a line spoken by Nick Nolte in 48 Hours.
Well, I'm just trying to help out.
So keep out of it. We don't need any big artillery.
Well, I'm just trying to help out, Van.
And with that, we've covered all of Bumblebee's lines in Dark of the Moon. Now let's take a look at Age of Extinction and the sources behind his new set of quotes. Bumblebee's first line in the film comes during a heated argument between Hound and Drift. As the two bicker, Bumblebee interjects with, "You know what? Just save us so much time." The first part, "You know what?" comes from Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump.
You know what? You know what?
While the second half, "Just save us so much time," is rumored to be sourced from Ben Schwartz. You see, Ben Schwartz revealed in an episode of The Game Grumps that his involvement in Transformers Age of Extinction stemmed from his early work on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where he did punch-up writing. While visiting Michael Bay's house for TMNT, Michael Bay asked Schwartz to help generate potential lines for Bumblebee's radio speech. The idea was that Schwartz would brainstorm lines that the filmmakers could later match to pre-existing audio clips. However, at some point during production, the filmmakers decided to keep some of Schwartz's recordings in the final cut, instead of replacing them with pre-existing audio clips. Because of this, certain quotes from Bumblebee in Age of Extinction don't have a clear reference since they were never pulled from outside media in the first place. And while we can't confirm every line Schwartz contributed, since he has never publicly identified which ones were his, there are a few that stand out as strong possibilities based on his voice.
Just save us so much time. I'm calm. I'm not even touching it. Okay, I'm barely touching it. Turn back here. I hate cheap knockoffs.
Now, moving on to the next time Bumblebee quotes, this one comes as a direct response to Drift, who questions his leadership skills and calls him a child. Bumblebee fires back with, "This child is about to kick your ass." The first part, to "This child is about to," comes from DeForest Kelley in the 1979 film Star Trek The Motion Picture.
He's like a child.
This child is about to... Spock. This child is about to wipe out every living thing on Earth.
While "kick your ass" is spoken by Woody Harrelson in 1992's White Men Can't Jump.
It's about to kick your ass. Hey, you touch her and I'll kick your ass, you hear me?
Next up, we have another moment where Bumblebee pulls from pop culture to make his point. This time it happens when Shane is riding shotgun and makes a mistake of saying that Stinger's vehicle mode is more badass than Bumblebee's. Not too happy with the comment, Bumblebee fires back with, "You talk to me like that? Now get out of here." The first part, "You talk to me like that," comes from Robert De Niro in the 1987 film The Untouchables.
You talk to me like that? You talk to me like that in front of my son?
While "Now Get Out of Here" is taken from John Wayne in El Dorado.
Now get out of here. Now get out of here.
Now, Bumblebee doesn't just take issue with Shane's comment. He also has something to say when KSI itself downplays him. When KSI brags about Stinger being an improvement over Bumblebee, let's just say Bumblebee isn't thrilled. He reacts with a frustrated "son of a line lifted straight from the 1999 film Galaxy Quest.
Son of a... For our friends. Son of a...
Shane, realizing Bumblebee is getting worked up, tries to calm him down, but B isn't having it. He fires back with, "I'm perfectly calm, dude," a line spoken by John Goodman in the 1989 film The Big Lebowski.
B, you gotta calm down right now.
I'm perfectly calm, dude.
You gotta
just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly calm, dude.
But despite what he says, Bumblebee's tone suggests otherwise. He quickly follows up with, I'm calm, I'm not even touching it. Okay, I'm barely touching it, which is a line that likely came from Ben Schwartz. Shane then urges Bumblebee to transform back into a car, but B snaps back with, get out of my face, alright? Which is taken from Eddie Murphy in the 1983 film Trading Places.
turn back into a car right now.
Get out my face, alright? That's cause it's when the cops fell, he threw tear gas in my face. And that's the kind of shit they use on crowds, man. I still walking in here like a man, so get out my face, alright?
Things escalate further when a KSI ad straight up calls Bumblebee ugly. B's response? A sharp, oh hell no. Now, hell no is spoken by Martin Lawrence from 2003's Bad Boys 2.
Oh, hell no. See, what you don't understand is my partner came here tonight prepared to die. Hell no.
However, unfortunately, the source for the O is unknown to us, but it's likely that it was sampled from Bad Boys 2.
Oh.
Furious at KSI, B charges at Stinger, kicking him while exclaiming, you think you're better than me. The second half, better than me, comes from the 2004 film Alfie.
Better than me. What's he got? Better than me.
But as for, you think you're, that one's unfortunately a mystery to us.
No. Better than me.
B then lets out a yee-haw, though this particular line's source remains unknown. As the chaos settles and KSI employees check in asking what Shane touched, B is already back in vehicle mode, blasting Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. Now, with the chaos at KSI momentarily behind them, Bumblebee goes on to break Kate out of the facility. As he does so, he keeps things simple, saying two quotes, the first one being come on, and the second one being let's get out of here. Unfortunately, neither of these lines have a confirmed source.
Come on, let's get out of here.
With Cade safely out of KSI, the team's escape isn't over yet. Later in the film, Bumblebee heroically saves Cade, Shane, and Tessa from falling to their deaths. Grateful, Cade calls Bumblebee the best, to which B responds confidently, you damn right. This line is spoken by Gil Hill in 1984's Beverly Hills Cop.
You're the best, B! You are the best! You damn right!
I think the issue should be my blatant disregard for proper procedure.
You damn right, wise ass!
B then follows up with, and don't ever forget it. However, this quote unfortunately is unsourced.
You are the best! You damn right!
And don't ever forget it.
Later in the film, Bumblebee takes to the skies, riding on strafe as the battle intensifies. As he soars over the city, he calls out to the humans below, shouting, hey you guys! This line originates from the 1979 film The Warriors.
Hey you guys! Hey you guys! Train's right over there!
He then follows it up with Yee-Haw, though much like the last Yee-Haw, the source of this one remains unknown. Now, later in the film, when Bumblebee is escorting Shane and Tessa, he delivers one last radio line when Tessa tells him to stop driving.
Stop the car!
Better listen.
Unfortunately, this quote remains unsourced. And with that said, we've covered all of Bumblebee's lines in Age of Extinction. So now let's take a look at The Last Night and the sources behind his new set of quotes. Bumblebee's first line in the film comes when he takes down a TRF sentinel, declaring, I'm tired of people messing with me. This line is directly taken from Eddie Murphy's 1987 stand-up special, Eddie Murphy Raw.
I'm tired of people messing with me. I'm tired of people messing with me.
Now later, when the TRF launches an attack on Bumblebee in Chicago, he turns the tables with an unexpected move, disassembling and reassembling himself mid-battle to gain the upper hand. As he neutralizes them, he taunts Santos with, next time you shoot somebody, don't go near them till you're sure they're dead. This line is spoken by John Wayne in El Dorado.
Next time you shoot somebody, don't go near them till you're sure they're dead. Next time you shoot somebody, don't go near them till you're sure they're dead.
With Santos now at his mercy, Bumblebee does not let up. He drops him to the ground and delivers a chilling warning. I'll burn you so bad you'll wish you died as a child. This line comes from the 1987 film Good Morning Vietnam, where it was spoken by J.T. Walsh.
I'll burn you so bad you'll wish you died as a child. But if you toy with me, I'll burn you so bad you'll wish you died as a child.
After this, B mocks Santos one last time by making some chicken noises. However, the source for this quote is unknown.
What's this?
Now, the next time Bumblebee quotes, it's during a heated argument with Crosshairs, who takes a jab at his leadership, saying he'll never be Optimus Prime. Bumblebee doesn't take the insult lightly and fires back with,
Shut up!
Before I do some damage, you won't walk away from.
You will never be Optimus Prime.
You talk too much.
The first part, shut up, is lifted from Jack Black in School of Rock.
Shut up!
What's your name?
Freddie Jones.
Freddie Jones. Shut up!
While Before I Do Some Damage You Won't Walk Away From comes from the 1993 film True Romance.
Before I do some damage, you won't walk away from.
Tell me, before I do some damage, you won't walk away from.
As Crosshairs continues to antagonize him, Bumblebee delivers one final line, "You talk too much." Unfortunately, this quote remains unsourced, and while it is rumored to come from John Wayne, in the 1962 film The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, they're unfortunately not a match.
You will never be Optimus Prime.
You talk too much. You talk too much.
Now, the next time Bumblebee quotes, it's when Kate tells him he's about to get a new voice box. Instead of responding with words, Bumblebee lets his radio do the talking, blasting a slightly modified ending of You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. Now, later in the film, when Bumblebee waits for Kate and Izzy to install his new voice box, he plays a couple of radio clips that reflect his reluctance and uncertainty about the whole process. First, he mutters, "Just do whatever you want," a line spoken by Jack Black in School of Rock.
Here goes, B.
Just do whatever you want.
Just do whatever you want.
Then he goes on to say, "Doc, come in, Doc," a line taken from 1989's Back to the Future Part 2.
Hey, Z, come on over here and work on the real bot.
Doc, come in, Doc. Doc, come in, Doc.
Later in the film, as the Autobots prepare for battle, Drift discovers a tracker hidden on Bumblebee, revealing that the Decepticons had been led straight to them. Crosshairs gets frustrated and scolds B, asking when he's going to grow up. In response, Bumblebee simply plays what appears to be "Dang It" over his radio. Sadly, we don't have any source for this one.
When are you gonna grow up?
Now, later in the film, Bumblebee finds himself on the receiving end of some unexpected gunfire when Bulldog, the old World War I Transformer, mistakes him for the enemy. Caught off guard, B reacts by playing "What the Hell," a line pulled from the 2007 comedy Hot Rod.
What the hell? What the hell? Was that because of us?
Not long after, Sir Edmund Burton claims to have known Bumblebee for decades, saying that they met when he was just a child. Cade, skeptical, turns to B for confirmation, but instead of a direct answer, B responds by sampling "I Don't F With You" by Big Sheen. Later in the film, during the high-speed chase through London, Bumblebee finally gets his rematch with Barricade. After taking the Decepticon down with a well-placed shot, he caps off the moment with a fitting radio clip. Now that's how you get to the big leagues. A line taken from the 2016 film Barbershop: The Next Cut.
You know, that's how you get to the big leagues. That's good, man. Keep putting in work. You know, that's how you get to the big leagues, like D Rose and D Wade.
Now, not long after, Bumblebee finds himself navigating through tight spaces as Cade orders him to find another way through the Guardian Knights' ship. Clearly frustrated, B's radio bursts out, "What? Are you serious?" A line taken from the 1989 classic Ghostbusters 2.
B, go around, find another way, come on.
What? Are you serious? What? Are you serious?
Still grumbling, he follows up with, "Think I like winding up in a place like this?" This time borrowing from the 1957 film Gunfight at the OK Corral.
What? Are you serious?
Think I like winding up in a place like this? You know what I got to show for it? A $12 a month room in the back of a cruddy boarding house and a tin star. Think I like winding up in a place like this? It's the end of the line for me, Wyatt.
Now, later in the film, Bumblebee finally regains his real voice, and for the first time since the 2007 movie, we hear him speak naturally. But interestingly, his voice actor this time around is not Mark Ryan, who originally voiced him in the first film. Instead, Bumblebee's voice was provided by Eric Otto, the film's supervising sound editor.
I am Bumblebee, your oldest friend. Optimus, I would lay down my life for you.
Now, Otto's casting as Bumblebee was almost an accident. You see, he originally recorded B's dialogue as a temporary placeholder. However, once director Michael Bay heard Otto's performance, he knew he had found the perfect voice for Bumblebee. According to the filmmakers, no one really had a sense of how Bumblebee should sound. Producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura would go on to say, "You really want to match the love you have for the character and also be very distinguishable from Optimus. He's sort of a teenager. He's a little out of control, but he's really warm and emotional. So trying to find that voice was not simple. We went through a lot of ideas." Director Michael Bay would go on to follow this up by saying, "The task was daunting, like how are you going to find that voice?" And then he just voiced it. We played it back, tweaked it out a bit, and it just worked. So with Bumblebee finally regaining his real voice, you'd think that this would mark the end of his radio quoting days. After all, he no longer needed to rely on borrowed lines to communicate. However, despite this big moment, B still uses his radio one last time in the film. It's during the scene when the Autobots are discussing the physical appearances of the Guardian Knights. B cues up a clip stating,
"Oh, they look like wusses to me."
No, they all messed up.
Now, unfortunately, just like many of his other lines, the origin of this one remains a mystery. This is just one of several unsourced quotes that have yet to be identified after all these years. And while we don't have a fully verified list of every single line Bumblebee has ever used, with enough effort, we might be able to change that. Currently, out of Bumblebee's 96 lines in the Bayverse, 26 of them are currently unsourced. If you're up for the challenge, I encourage everyone to help track down the missing sources. To make things easier, I've put together a Google Doc, which you can find using the link in the description below. It will serve as a guide listing every known quote alongside the ones we still need to identify. With your help, we might just be able to come up with a complete list of Bumblebee's quotes in the Bayverse. So if you recognize any of them, please tell me in the comments below. With that said, thanks for watching, and as always, keep on theorizing.